The cheap bike build-off allows for a total build budget of 145 euros. This is my contender, an old German Herrenrad from a company called Steiger. A bike that wouldn't get too many second looks out on the street in its current state, but it does have several things going for it. For starters, the steel frame comes with at least 2 colors, depends on how you count. It also features painted lugs, always good to have those. There is not 1, not 2, but a total of 3 brakes. A coaster brake as well as front and rear rim brakes. Oh yeah, and did I mention what I can only describe as a hood ornament? You could therefore argue that the name they gave it is quite appropriate. This luxurious vehicle cost me 45 euros, which leaves me with a parts budget of 100 euros. Which is problematic because I am set on putting thick slick tires on it, which will cost me another 58 euros. So it looks like we need to get creative with what we've already got. But hey, that's what the cheap bike build-off is all about, right? This being a 1959 model, it might very well be the oldest bike in the running. So I'm not going to try to fancy it up and hide the age. Instead, we will do the opposite and really lean into that aspect and celebrate its patina and old schoolness. The awesome Sax Torpedo 3-speed coaster hub, for example. Or the fully chrome star-shaped steel cranks. There definitely is a number of cool stock parts we can work with for this Ratbike build, and in today's video I want to plan how we're going to spend the remaining budget. In the meantime, I have removed all components and cleaned the frame, and I gotta say it looks a lot more red now than it did initially. It also looks a lot more sparkly, and I noticed that at least the main frame must have chrome coating underneath. Parts also came off pretty willingly, with the exception of the bottom bracket, which is a little bit strange because it's different than I'm used to from these old bikes. The left crank arm is stuck, but even if I was able to remove it, I don't know how you would remove the bottom bracket. It appears that this center ring is screwed on and is what is holding it in place. I don't know what tool you would use to remove it, but the good news is the crank spins really nicely, so we can just leave it in there. And since I managed to remove the chainring crank arm, we can at least give that a good cleaning. But let's move on to the fun stuff and start planning this build. This was the saddle and seat post combination that was on here. The seat post is definitely too short for me, so I needed to replace that with a longer one. And I've decided to combine it with this rusty saddle, which should look really cool together with the thick slick tires. Kinda looks like leather, but it's actually nylon. And given the condition, I've priced it at 4 euros, plus another 5 for the seat post. For budget reasons, I've decided to mount only the front brake, so we just need one of the brake levers from the handlebars, and some alcohol and brute force always does the trick. The levers have these plastic or rubber hoods, and I'm not quite sure if I should use them or not. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. I mean, it's kind of unique to have it, but I don't know if I like how it looks. So I think what we'll do, rather than removing this, because once I've taken it off, it's gone, we can't put it back on. So I'm a bit hesitant to do that. So I think I'll just mount this part that I have instead. It's the exact same lever. And of course, we also need something to mount them to. And I want to use these flat bars, as well as this stem with a little bit of extra reach and a lot of extra style. Just for comparison, this is the original stem. And in terms of pricing, I have assigned 5 euros for the stem and 4 for the bars. I was thinking, since we have a coaster brake on here, that we combine with slick tires should make for a real skid machine. And therefore, this cockpit setup that is a bit fixed gear inspired seemed to make sense to me. For the grips, I was thinking we could use these old specialized rubber grips. They're not in the best condition, but they should look really nice with the thick slick tires. I'm just a bit unsure about pricing. The alternative would be this set that costs 6 euros. So let me know if you think I can get away with pricing those 6 euros or less. Otherwise, I'll use the new grips from the shop. I also want to switch out the shifter. This black torpedo shifter is definitely too new for this bike. The bike should have come with either this red one or an even older version, but I think the red one matches the bike really nicely. It's also super shiny, so pretty cool looking. I'm pricing this one at €5. When it comes to the one brake that we're mounting, we could obviously use the one that was on here, or we could dial up the rat factor a little bit with this super old and trashy looking one that is partially rusty. The chrome has come off. So I want to clean this and see what it looks like then. But yeah, I think it should be fair game to price this at $0. So let me know if you think that's fair. Now this I'm super excited about. I found these wing nuts in the parts stash, and they are from Steiger, so the right brand. I'm pricing those at €3, and they'll go on the front wheel. Now in terms of mudguards, these are still fine, but I'm not a huge fan of this these ridges. So I'm thinking maybe we'll choose something from the parts bin to replace them with. There's more in the back, but maybe we'll start with what we have here. Probably something like this, just plain, like nothing fancy going on, no color at all. I think that'll work better because the frame is already quite wild. For cost reasons, I think we can only afford to mount one, and I've decided to mount it in the rear and put our little Steiger hood ornament on there as sort of a shark fin that is a bit reminiscent of what cars looked like in the 50s. So I think that could be really cool. The next step will be to clean and polish all selected components, which is where we're picking things back up in part 2. That also means there is another video coming later this week to make sure that we get this done in time for the deadline on the 23rd. And in the meantime, please let me know your thoughts on my pricing.